It's also a matter of changing the mindset of people, of all players within that industry. Also about from the utility companies, they really need to recognize the thermal heat from the data center side as an asset, and it's by far not a good solution to just blow it into the environment, to maybe make use of it, and also not demanding for their district heating system to have 90 or 100 degrees there. Maybe also less is good enough to do the heating and the hot top water for a building or a shopping mall, you name it, or hotel, kindergarten, school, in the city center. Hi everyone, this is Stefan Frenzel from DME, Managing Director and Independent Consultant located in Munich, Germany. And you are watching Data Center Go-to-Market together with Joshua Feinberg. Enjoy.
Hello, data center friends across the globe. I'm Joshua Feinberg, host of the Data Center Go-to-Market podcast, and I'm thrilled to be welcoming two very special guests here with me today. I'm welcoming Stefan Frenzel, who is the Managing Director of DME in Germany, and David G., who is an independent consultant with Impleon in France. Stefan and David, welcome to the podcast.
Hello,
thank you. Thank you for having us today.
I'm thrilled to have you here as well. So the first place I think that would be super interesting to start is to understand a little more about how each of you ended up in your current roles today with being top leaders in the data center industry across Europe and all over the world in your respective areas. So, Stefan, what led you down this path where you've ended up now as Managing Director of DME?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Very good question. So basically, I'm always was interested in technology, in the IT in particular. So I've been working in this field since more than 20 years, and really only focusing on the data center industry. Out of this 20 years, more than 10 years working for various companies. I have my own consultancy company, and located, as you mentioned at the beginning, here in Germany, in the south of Germany, in Munich. And together with David, I think we can see we are well known within the industry on a worldwide scale. And David and myself, we also managed the OCP, the Open Compute Project Foundation. So actually the group for the EMEA region for more than 4 years. We have been done this voluntary leadership, but we resigned those roles at the beginning of the year in January, because we needed to free up some capacity for our consultancy work.
How about you, David? What is how did you end up in your current role leading Impleon and being so focused on decarbonization and sustainability on a worldwide basis?
Yes, so I started from my education in aerospace industry. So I always have focused on energy efficiency and innovations. And half of my experience was connected with the district heating and air conditioning, and another half was connected with the data center air cooling, on-chip cooling, and immersion cooling and liquid heat transfer. So I was responsible for the selection of the air coolers, heat exchangers, outdoor units, and etc., and estimation of overall system performance. And after that, I start work as independent consultant with focus on data center decarbonization and heat reuse. And my outcome when I start evaluate the carbon footprint is that when we make transition from air to liquid cooling, we have heavily impact on reducing the energy infrastructure. And that leads to the less embodied carbon and also increase the efficiency. And another thing is that when we start make heat reuse, we make impact outside of the scope of that center, and we substitute someone fossil fuel consumption, and that allows us to create conditions when that center can be carbon negative. So this is inspiring me in order to create circularity, to create sustainable way for the data centers and cover as environmental as well social pillars.
So it's a combination of that start in aerospace and being in a position to influence how cooling and air conditioning, chilling, and then that leading to the revelation that the data centers needed so much more work around decarbonization and getting to net zero.
Yes.
So I'm super curious with both of you, if there's something where you look back now in your really young formative years, when you were still in high school or when you were in university, was there something that was going on in your lives that set you down this path to be working in these roles within the digital infrastructure community and ecosystems? Stefan?
Yeah, I was always, like, say, curious about new things, about innovations. This was always at the beginning, also when I've been at the university. And I must say, I really also enjoy working in that industry. And as I mentioned, as I think also in one of our prep calls, it's like a big family. It's a young, dynamic industry. Yeah, it's international. So people know each other, and I really like this international flair. When it comes to also new technologies, people are working together on a global scale in different regions. So this is really what fascinates me: working together with a bunch of international guys, also like really into the technology, and trying really to work on the, let's say, the scope 3 emissions, to decrease those scope 3 emissions, because this is a big challenge what we are facing in this decade, to really decrease the CO2 emissions of our data center sites.
Yeah, and for sure, given your location in Europe and the challenges of navigating different cultures, different languages, that forces a much more even methodical approach to all of this than someone that was, say, approaching this in the US, which brings opportunities and certainly brings challenges, especially in communication.
That's right. Yes. Yeah, I love the international environment. I'm used to this in Europe, but I also love working with other regions, if it's in the US or in Asia. So everyone, from my understanding, is really aiming for the same. Yeah, we would like to also leave it like a better world, working on the climate, and the greenhouse gas emission is something we can influence. Many things are happening, and this is probably also what we will elaborate throughout our call. And we would like to do, and we're saying we, so David and myself, we would like to do our fair share in that.
That's terrific. David, I'm curious also about the origin story of how you ended up in your career. Was there something that was happening as a teenager, something that was happening in high school or university really early on that set you down this path of wanting to pursue engineering, cooling, decarbonization as one of your ultimate career goals?
So my first personal computer was ZX Spectrum in 1993. After that, I get Pentium in 1996, and my first the connection was in this period of time through the modem, and only in 1997 we get connection to the internet, and I have my first mailbox. And after that, of course, it's increased the opportunities overall in the business, in the global scale, to be connected with everyone. And I see how fast develop all that technologies and where we achieve now with AI possibilities, and how it's opened the possibilities for different enterprises to understand their market, how to drive their solutions to the customers, etc. So behind that, of course, a lot of carbon on production of that servers, on providing these connection services, and of course the energy which is used by that center, because people should understand that each hour in Facebook or WhatsApp is behind that is the energy consumption in that center, which is located in US or in Europe. And we should understand that this digitalization should be created in sustainable way. And as said Stefan, we are trying to explain how it can be done in most efficient way, and create new standards, new demands for the sustainability in data centers.
There seems to be more urgency every week or every month that goes on. Just early on today, I was scrolling through my LinkedIn feed and I saw something hit a mainstream news outlet quoting Elon Musk that next year is going to be the year where the growth of AI and EVs are going to start to pose massive challenges to grid. So yeah, there's really not, this isn't something where the industry can have years to figure this out. It's weeks or months.
Fully agree. There are some countries that have already an issue with their energy grid, and this is also due to, let's say, the booming data center industry consuming a lot of energy. And let's say throughout AI, the high performance applications, this is even accelerating this industry, you know. And yeah, so many countries are facing already today some issues.
There's parts of the US that are already under severe concerns about grid supply. As recently as a year or two ago, Texas, which is one of the top 5 Dallas is one of the top 5 US markets, went through a bad winter where the need for heating in areas that typically don't need a lot of heat during the winter, they had a severe frost, tested the limits of the grid. There's already a lot of talk about the small modular nuclear reactors, bringing 3 Mile Island back up online in Pittsburgh. So there's a lot of conversations going on in the US about how power capacity is limiting development.
Also, there is the issue with the water. If you know, in Australia, the data centers was the reason of the absence of possibility to build new living buildings, because the water was all taken by the data centers and there was no quote for these new areas. And this is another issue which is also existing in US as well.
Yeah, for sure. Switching gears a little bit. So I've learned a little bit more about how each of you got into this industry early on in your career. I imagine you're at a place where when you go to events from time to time, young people tend to approach you. Maybe it's the son or daughter of a coworker, maybe it's a niece or a nephew or someone else, where they understand that you've reached this great, admirable place in your careers within critical facilities, within digital infrastructure. And they're curious about what a career path might look like in this space in a client-facing role. They will put the guardrail on this, that they're not particularly interested in software development or becoming an engineer. They're curious about client-facing roles across sales, marketing, product management, channel partnerships. What kind of advice would you offer to someone that's at that place in their life where they're doing soul searching of figuring out what they want their career trajectory to look like, at least in the early years? I'll start with you, David.
Yes. So as you know, the data centers are hidden, and when you use any kind of application, you can't even see where is everything is happening. And even if you want to go there, it is very secured and restricted to achieve there and see what is happening inside. And this is the reason why it's not easy to understand what is happening and where are they located. So this is the first issue. And next thing is that even if you want to get there, data centers want to hire people which have already experience in that area. And most probably that data centers get people from the similar mission critical industries, which can be like a nuclear plant, military organizations, and others. However, now there is so huge gap between demand and supply in people to the data center industry that they start to look all other industries where can be taken people in that data center application. So they start to look for the energy, for the cooling, for the also marketing, because now data centers also cover social pillars, and they're looking for the people who can help with that. But in short, you should look through the internet. You should look educational video. What is that data center? What is a local to you data center? and how to get some kind of excursion there and understand what is happening there and be connected with that center.
So it seems like a big part of the challenge is not even aware that these data centers exist because of the decades, the shroud of secrecy. And then on top of that, that there's so many different potential roles because there's so many niches, so many segments within the data center industry that just kind of navigating your way around.
And I can just bring one of example. In UK, there was a meeting with the representatives of government, and they talk about the data center, how to help with that issue. And they said, just let's move internet to the cloud. It means that they don't understand that the cloud is a data center. The host of the cloud is a data centers. And this is, we talk about the high level people. So what we can say about ordinary people, which just using the applications, phones, and don't understand what is behind that. What is the infrastructure for all that information, where it's stored.
Yeah, that's a major problem in the United States as well, where if they're counting on having sensible regulation of AI, a lot of the US Congress representatives and senators still haven't caught up to understanding Facebook and Google and Microsoft's ecosystem especially well, as is apparent every time the leaders of those organizations are brought in and are questioned by elected representatives. So yeah, there's a lot of challenges around that. Stefan, what advice would you offer to someone that is a son or daughter, teenager, who's exploring these non-technical career options in digital infrastructure? Maybe they're a neighbor, cousin, coworker, someone that you've known for years in the conference, and is wondering if their son or daughter could have coffee with you or have lunch with you.
Yes. So I always recommend, please be open, and I'm promoting the data center industry among young talents. This is what I'm only do, and also David does the same. The field of work are really you can do a lot. So there are many jobs are available. Of course, what David mentioned, of course, the technical side. If you want to go there, if you do an engineering degree, this is a good starting point. This is also because many people working in that industry, they have a technical background. Of course, like me, I have a commercial background. People are also needed. But many guys working in the industry, they have a technical background. This is also, in my humble view, the reason for it's male dominated. So this differs from country to country, to region to region, but in many countries or regions, I think 90% of the people, and we're meeting them at all these data center events and conferences and trade shows, are really not female. We have some really talented and excellent females there, but we are pushing to have more women in the industry. Because as I mentioned, it's a booming industry. It's young. It's international. It's a lot of fun to work in that industry. So that's why I'm promoting it all the time. And by the way, Joshua, I haven't didn't mention this before. We also do guest lectures at universities. So I've done one when I was on business in London. I have been invited by the East London University, and they have done a guest lecture in front of master students of science. This was an international group. They came mainly from the MENA region. So when these guys going back after the studies, they will work in the industry in their home countries. So I was really pleased that I could use or leverage from this opportunity, really sharing what the industry is all about, and hopefully made them curious to enter in this career. So we're already now in the process trying to really motivate young talents to enter in the industry.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of really good ecosystem programs that are just started up in the last couple of years, but it's something that going back 10 years or so, I remember being at an industry conference and talking to the executive director of a big association that was approaching retirement. And I remember looking around and saying, okay, I'm in my early 40s. I'm one of the youngest people in the room here. I'm mid-career. Where are all the millennials and what's Gen Z? And it's improved, but yeah, there's a lot of work, and there's a lot of work around gender parity, also getting a lot more women into these careers. And it's unusual. It's surprising to me because I spent all the early years of my career in IT services and IT consulting and enterprise IT support. What's really strange is in the first 5 or 10 years of my career, some of my best mentors were women leaders. So it's so strange to me that it feels like, I don't know whether we've gone backwards or whether things have changed, but throughout the 1990s, at all different enterprise kinds of companies where I was either a consultant or an employee or a channel partner, like phenomenal women leaders. And I don't know where we, well, and part of it is higher education. Part of it is the messaging. Part of it is fixing this at a societal level, not just within the data center industry.
And Joshua, if I may add, there are also people needed in sales and marketing, in particular marketing. We are, as an industry, we are not very good in communication. We are not communicating that many good things are happening. We are now on the radar screen, also mentioned by David. People are aware if they on the smartphone looking for something on Google, if they're streaming a video and so on, it ends up in the data center side. So people are aware. There is an energy consumption coming with it, and also CO2 is also there's CO2 emissions is also coming in with that. So, but we are not really telling what we're doing in terms of liquid cooling, in terms of increasing the density, making use of the excess heat, and so on and so forth. We are not really good in that. So people are not aware that many things are happening at the moment.
Yeah, for sure. Every chance I get when I'm hosting our own webinars and hosting our own podcasts, I remind people that we now have this self-driven buyer's journey where most of the research and decision making is being made without talking with a salesperson. And it wasn't always like this 10 years ago. Sales teams were typically involved in about half of the sales cycle, half of the journey. Today, it's only about 10 or 15%. So everyone in those kinds of roles is going through this existential deer in the headlight moment of figuring out how they determine relevance. And most of it is repositioning themselves to look more like teachers and consultants and subject matter experts and trusted advisors, and way less focused on just the transaction. There's another piece of this too, a consistent theme that I hear is that now that communities are pushing back a lot against data center development, especially in the United States, you have this entirely new category of stakeholders, of buyer personas that also need content resources and educating and events and trust building, like elected officials, utility companies, state activists, all a completely different kind of nurturing than your traditional like technology executives and facilities executives and developers and investors. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunity. There's also a lot of challenges for rethinking what go-to-market and sales and marketing looks like in the coming months and coming years.
Agree. Yeah.
Shifting gears now, we talked about advice for people that are brand new to the data center, haven't even entered the data center industry yet, and they're contemplating these career choices. What about someone that you may have known from earlier on in your career that maybe you haven't seen for 10 years or so? You bump into them at a conference, they hear about all the great things that you're doing, and you sense that they're a little bit stuck. They're in a little bit of a rut. They're stressed out. They're burnt out. They want to grab a beer or coffee or lunch with you, and they're asking for advice on what you think they should do to get their career back on track in data centers and digital infrastructure. Stefan, can we start with you? Sure.
So basically, what we already mentioned, the pace the industry is developing is crazy. I mean, it's changing really rapidly. Talking about AI data centers, looking at the AI chiplets and servers, how frequently they are changing, the performance is increasing, and so I would tell these guys, and we meet them all the time, and they're approaching us because we've been preaching about making use of the heat rejection from the servers, from the data center sites. And now it's a bit matter for them because energy is so expensive here in Europe. I think they need to really review when they, let's say, also working as a data center provider. they need to review their business model. It's they need to adapt from the, let's say, traditional data center sites, air-cooled, to, let's say, a modern data center site with AI or high-performance computing application. This is a totally different ball game. So they need to really review what they have done in the past and be flexible and adjust their business model, because if they don't do this with many other businesses, they will be out of business at one point. This I can really tell people, please, it's not business as usual anymore. Yeah, you cannot run data center sites only air cooled, only with 5 kilowatt per rack. Yeah, and then blowing all the heat rejection into the environment. It's an assess we need to make use of, and this is something. And we in the days just thinking about profit and return on investments, providing the return on investments to their stakeholders. This is over. Yeah, of course it's still good to make profit, but of course you need to also think about the social and the environmental pillar of your business. And this is something I'm happy also to tell people who are really since 20 or 30 years in the business and who have an issue adjusting to this, what I just explained.
So a lot of it sounds like not only keeping your skills sharp and upskilling, but just having enough self-awareness of how your career trajectory may be impacted by a lot of macro factors that are going on in the industry, going on in your company. Perhaps your company isn't on the forefront of a growth spurt anymore, and it's time to look for a different opportunity, a different company. But a lot of it seems like just really being pilots and taking a proactive role in figuring all of this out, whereas in the past they could coast a little bit more.
Yes, I mean, if you talk, let's say, also to these managers, maybe 5 years away from their pension, I mean, they were not interested in the past about making use of the heat from the data center sites, the thermal heat, because it was not helping them with their annual profit or annual also bonus, and now also here in Europe. Legislation is also coming in. There's a European directive, and many countries, also Germany, since January, we have part of our Energy Efficiency Act, is really demanding from organizations, providing more than 7.5 gigawatt of energy on an annual basis for the last 3 years. Not only data center sites, but also data center sites. They need to do something. They need to do energy reporting. They need to do making use of the excess heat. There's a transition period now at the moment, but now what we have been preaching, we just see in it that people approaching us, hey, you're telling us about what is liquid cooling, how you can really easily make use of the thermal heat. Can you help us there? Because sometimes they don't have a clue. Yeah.
Yeah, there's just this huge need for continual education. And I think that companies that are able to take the lead in many cases are going to have not only this strong social responsibility, but are going to realize that it's good business. It's great for their marketing. It's great for their brand to take a proactive leadership role in being the one who's having this world-class education for their most important personas, and just leaving this to traditional media companies is good, but they're spread thin and they're trying to hit a lot of different areas at once. For companies that are really very deeply invested in certain regions and certain kind of companies and certain kind of stakeholders, there is an enormous, I don't know if it needs to be at the stage where every company has a podcast and every company has a webinar program, but it sure feels like we're moving in that direction where the traditional marketing team looks a lot more like a deeply niched media company, just for that company's commercial interests, focusing on its most important stakeholders.
And you can really make a difference. You can act if you've done your homework, so to speak. If you're really running, let's say, a green or sustainable data center sites, you can really act as a role model, as a benchmark for others. Mm-hmm. So the time of just greenwashing and telling, we're thinking about it. But if you do this and also prove this, and there are many tools you can really use that you can prove. Scope 3 is really reported in these tools from the manufacturer. until it gets a second life, it's sold on as refurbished to get a second life, you can really monitor, and you are helping also others to decrease the Scope 3 emissions. And I think this is something which will really also come the next couple of years. People are realizing we got to do something, and David again and myself, we are supporting guys on that journey.
And for sure, there's this moment where you feel like a lot of these best practices around Scope 3 and similar kinds of regulations, how does it spread to the other side of the pond? More than likely, it's because there's companies that have commercial interests globally, and they're making these investments to get this right in Europe. And then in order to normalize, in order to standardize their financial reporting, especially if they're publicly traded, they will need to adopt a similar platform and dashboards and KPIs throughout North America, throughout Asia.
Yes, that's right. David, maybe you would like to say something, but yeah, we have conversations with investors, and we can see they only invest in projects where, let's say, where it's a sustainable focus, where is renewable energy involved. They're not investing anymore where fossil fuel is really involved, and we can see this as a trend. Especially here in Europe, but I think the same will happen also in the US and other regions. David? Sorry, David.
So I just want to come back to the advice for the colleagues which are entering in data center market right now. So Joshua, can you share the slide which I prepared? So what is the idea? That on the left side you see air-cooled data center with chillers, cooling towers, air coolers, and a lot of space. And on the right side you see new liquid cool solution which have 5 times less space, don't have a chillers, air coolers, and cooling towers, only dry coolers, and they consume much less energy with the same compute power. So now what is happening? On the left side is 99% of the market, and all supply chain, I mean, the producers of the chiller, cooling towers, air conditioning, and etc., they have a habit for last 30 years built in that way. And the same with the people in the industry. And there is a new solutions which are more sustainable, which are more efficient. But if they will be transitioned from this side to this side, a lot of people will lose the job, and they should shift their habits and shift the company itself, which produce, let's say, chillers, also should look in another way for this approach. So what is the point? That if all data center industry will shift from left to right side, it means that we will able to grow 40% with the same power input in intensive way. But today we see just extensive way. It means that each 40% which we need to grow, we will need additional power from the grid, we will consume more, etc. So what is my advice for people who come in industry? Not to learn from the old data center generation and copy paste, but look for the new technologies, sharpen their knowledge, and create new design, new way of the efficiency, which is shown on this slide of example. This is my advice, because what is happening now, the new data centers for AI capacity, they grow rapidly, and they have new design, and the people which is requested with that experience, there are not so many, and this is where is the request. And also the transition from existing sales, and make step by step shift for the new technologies and more efficient approach, which allow you not only to reduce the energy consumption of that center, but also to have higher temperatures for heat reuse. This is what I want to deliver.
So David, what you're saying is that not only is it bad social policy, but bad karma, but it's also a bad career path for someone to stay with a company that's not environmentally sustainable, that's using traditional C-racks and traditional chillers and is not investing in liquid cooling?
Yes, I want to say that I have some experience with one guy who said we should not say about any other solution which is not in portfolio of our company. We should be silent about that. And I said, no, you should talk about innovations, even if you sell your existing solution, because in that case, you have more opportunity to interact with the new solutions and fit in that new data center design with your equipment. Otherwise, you will not adopt and you will just take it out.
Yeah, it's very difficult to have a conversation about AI and high performance compute and the high density racks without it spilling over into a massive increase in grid and a massive increase in cooling requirements. So it's really hard to imagine someone having a holistic conversation about all this without taking cooling and efficiency into account.
But Joshua, what we see now that even cloud servers, which was before 300 watts, now they come 1 kilowatt. And if we have before 30 servers in the rack and it was 9 kilowatt, and now it become 20, 25, 30 kilowatt. And air cooling is just not enough. And this is why we see like just 9 servers in the rack and the rest space is empty, because there is already we achieved that limit. So customers and data centers itself start to think what is the next, what we should do. And it's natural development of the servers which lead to this natural changes in data center infrastructure. And also in mind of the people that we should not only driven by the financial pillar. So
the Data Center Go-to-Market podcast is sponsored by DCSMI, elevating the role of sales, marketing, and go-to-market GTM professionals in the growth of the data center industry. To stay informed about upcoming episodes, make sure that you subscribe to the Data Center Sales and Marketing newsletter on the DCSMI website that can be found at www.dcsmi.com. Again, that URL is www.dcsmi.com.
What we see, the data centers build and choose the place where the low cost of the land and low cost of the energy. And when they start after think about the heat reuse, they realize that there is 20-kilometer distance to be connected to the grid, and district heating grid, and it is too expensive. So from that perspective, we start to think and created open source underground data center to bring 3,000 rack in the heart of the city underground without disturbing existing buildings and providing the heat directly where it's needed. And also we solve issue with the cost of the land, because underground space don't cost you much. It is 10 times lower in expenses. And at the same time, you have a good connectivity to your customers.
Yeah, there seems to be, especially throughout Europe, not so much in the US quite yet, is this idea of decentralizing the data center of these huge monolithic hyperscale locations that are located in the middle of nowhere where real estate was inexpensive, seems to be falling out of favor in favor of, especially, and seems to be in the Nordics, but I see this general trend of the heat reuse. And because of that proximity to city areas is super important. And it's also many times solving an edge challenge as well for latency sensitive applications.
When you have district heating in the city, then you can have centralized because you're through the grid support. But if you don't have district heating, then you can use, as you said, edge decentralized modular data centers with 500 1 megawatt capacity, which will be connected in proximity to the 10 buildings on distance like 200, 300 meters, and will cover their heating needs. Both approaches is possible. And even there can be another approach, which is like IT digital boiler, which represents itself IT rack, which provide the heat inside of the building. And you install just one rack, which is 50 or 30 kilowatt, and provide the heating inside of the building. And it's not saving scope 3 emissions on the building, on the energy infrastructure and network, and cooling, because everything is already integrated in existing building where you put this IT rack.
So it's not only is the data center operator also becoming self-generating, they're actually becoming a grid contributor or a utility company of their own. But for making all of this happen, it requires a different level of thinking about what it means to be providing public utilities, privately held utility companies, grid capacity, making big capital investments.
But we have already such a solution in France. We have already a company which provides this IT equipment. They just bring it's like an IT boiler. They pay for energy bills and provide the heat, and they operate their 3D rendering or other calculations on this equipment and provide the heat. So it's already exists.
But I agree, Joshua, it's also a matter of changing the mindset of people, of all players within that industry. Also about from the utility companies, they really need to recognize the thermal heat from the data center side as an asset, and it's by far not a good solution to just blow it into the environment, to maybe make use of it, and also not demanding for their district heating system to have 90 or 100 degrees there. Maybe also less is good enough to do the heating and they have hot top water for a building or a shopping mall, you name it, or hotel, kindergarten, school, in the city center, what David said, and this can also then increase work as a profit generator, hopefully in the future for many data center sites, that they can sell on that terminal heat generated through hopefully 100% renewable energy. If the grid is really living up to that, transferred into the racks into thermal heat and then sold on to someone else to make use of that. So this is something also when it comes to the mindset, that there is a legislation as a framework, that's good, fair enough. But of course, people need to also adopt and live up to the idea that is an asset, and nothing doesn't make sense at all to just blow it into the environment.
It's got interesting commercial implications as well, because utility companies typically don't need to spend a lot on customer acquisition. They spend a lot on branding, but once they have an incumbency, once they have a quasi monopoly, there's a lot of really interesting cross sells, upsells, increasing share of wallet, unit economics, all of the challenges that a normal sales and marketing leaders, commercial officers go through all the time that could be very positively impacted by this approach. But it's, if you think the blurring of lines between telecommunications and co-location and hyperscale is interesting, or managed services and all of this is interesting, and cloud infrastructure, roll into running a utility company adjacent to the data center operator business, and it fundamentally changes the business models.
In many cities, many capitals in Europe, but also I assume this is worldwide, they have net zero targets in 2035 and 2040. And of course, data center sites, like described by David, underground data center sites in the city, or there are also these subsea data center sites, submerged data center sites, which you can drown them down into a river, a lake, a channel there. They can also provide the heat to buildings close to that river, and that building can get rid of the fossil fuel, and then can also offset their carbon emissions, right? So this and the data center side can also work towards also net zero target. So it's a win-win for both parties there, and this is something we're pushing. The challenge is the size and the location. The big sites are outside the city on a green field in the middle of nowhere, where there's no user for the heat. So we try to get it into the urban area where the heat is really needed.
So maybe the leader of the future of some of these big data center operator or real estate investment trust companies, instead of ESG being just a role within the company, maybe you start to see boards recruiting former executives coming out of the utility industry to run these data center operators, to change the mindset with all of this.
Yes. I mean, we need to have the utility companies on board. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
David, Stefan, when you think about what's going on throughout Europe on a global basis, what do you feel is the biggest mistake that the industry is making right now? We'll start with you, Stefan.
Yeah, I think I don't want to repeat myself too often. I think the biggest mistake at the moment is that they're missing this the social and environmental pillar, which is really something they really need to look into. This is the biggest mistake as I can see here, and this is something which we will see. There will be some changes. Some is there that the law is changing, the legislation is changing, but this is only the framework. I think the market will realizing they need to do something. Especially, let's say, if I look at Germany here in the European Union, we have by far the highest energy prices throughout Europe. Yeah, so data center providers need to be more creative because now it's eating up their profit margins. So and of course, the Nordic region, they have a clear advantage. It's 100% renewable. Our grid is not 100% renewable, but in the Scandinavian countries it is, and it's by far cheaper than here in Germany. So that they're not losing customers, they need to do something. And of course, making use of the heat is a good thing to get the energy back or get also the profit back. They are now investing into those high energy prices. So this is something I must say they are still in the old business model and still living up this traditional data center side concept, and they need to think about in this modern side, a cloud native data center side with where we can see the high performance applications are increasing, the density is increasing. You need to adopt liquid cooling, whether it's direct to chip cooling or it's immersion cooling. This will come. It's getting out of the niche, and of course we're 100% renewable and making use of the excess heat. Plus, circular economy gear is also a point we haven't touched upon in this conversation. Making use of decommissioned servers, extending the lifetime. This is also something, and this in combination, then you're on the right track, and then of course you have a future-proof data center site, and you will be happy for the next coming years.
Yeah, the circular economy issue with recycling of the hardware has come up a few times on this podcast, and what's super interesting with that is when you look at the need for rethinking higher education in the universities, that seems like the perfect natural fit of where once it's cycled from a hyperscaler down to a smaller co-location facility, and it's on going from the second life to the third life. It's 5-year-old equipment. Even the smaller independently owned co-location company doesn't want it anymore. Probably perfect to end up in a lab environment and instructional environment with students that are majoring in IT and computer science and engineering.
Agree. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is I say these are building blocks you're using, and one, not the only one, but one is also circular economy gear, extending the lifetime, not destroy it. Yeah, but you can extend the lifetime easily up to, let's say, 5, 6, 7 years. Sometimes it's what you also said, ending up in a university or a lab. It can extend to 10 years, and this is also paying into the scope 3 emissions. This needs to be reported. And there we have this DCIM software, data center infrastructure management software, which is really sophisticated because the calculation is quite complex from the original manufacturer until it's get a second life with someone else, and it's used in another data center site after it has been used by the hyperscalers. This to calculate is not so easy, but we have tools now in place who can support us there.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It brings through so many commercial issues, cross-border commercial issues, social issues, sustainability issues, circular economy issues. And where it gets super interesting and potentially more complicated is the cross-border issues of all different ways of approaching this. David, where do you feel the industry is making the biggest mistake right now, and what do you wish they would approach a little bit differently across Europe and on a global basis?
Yes, this is a really great question, because we should think global. And if we look for the hyperscalers, they work globally. And for example, Meta have many data centers, and they have one in Asia, 3 in Europe, own data centers, and 27 in US. And this is why we have a huge amount of data centers in Northern Virginia, which is based on fossil fuel energy grid. And what is the mistake? That hyperscalers buy certificates in order to show that they are net zero. But when it comes to reality, and this year we saw that reports from Guardian that their real emissions is 660% more than it's declared. And this is the huge mistake. This is like a Dieselgate story in the data center industry. It's mean that data centers, by choosing this financial approach, they build quick and fast in US, where they know how to build. There is no any restrictions with CO2 emissions. There is no issue with the climate like in Asia, and they just build in US. But in the end, we will see a situation where too much data centers will be located in US, and if there will be something with energy grid, it will impact globally. So when you start to think about decarbonization and heat reuse, then you can rethink all your design of the data center and adopt that, for example, for the Australia or Middle East, where you can take the heat from the data center, use that for the desalination plant, and by this achieve end reduction on cost of the data center infrastructure, and it can be lower in the capital investments than in US, and at the same time provide social pillar, because you will provide the water, desalinated water, and will able to bring this water to the people with a lower cost, or convert desert to the garden. So this is the mistake which is happening till now. We need fast, we need right now. We don't have to reevaluate our approach to build data centers, to make heat reuse. And that mistakes repeated by the all hyperscalers globally. This is my awareness, what I want to explain.
So it seems like not only is there an important social role with the utility companies, there's potentially a need for urban planners to rethink how they design and lay out communities to optimize to make this happen, for the heat exchange, for the water, for residential, commercial buildings, school buildings, and really integrating data centers much more into the communities than they ever have in the past.
Absolutely right. Absolutely.
So when you have these residents and elected officials that are coming after the data center developers with pitchforks and saying, no more, it's too noisy, you're taking all our grid supply, we can't buy more EVs, there's no water left. Part of the pushback needs to be not just, hey, we're creating tax revenue for the communities, but we also have these other potential solutions in mind, but we need to take a multi-year time horizon to this, because it's not going to happen overnight.
Yes, right.
So part of the solution to grid capacity is making the data centers a supplier of additional grid, not only is self-sufficient, but being able to give back to the grid. And that's the whole premise, I guess, of a carbon negative. So when you think about where we are as an industry and where we are with your careers, what do you think the role of a consultant in the industry is going to look like 2, 3, 4 years out from now? Like, Stefan, how do you think marketing and communication and event planning and growing communities in the data center ecosystem is going to change over the next 2, 3, 4 years?
Yeah, that's also a good question. So basically, we perceive ourselves we have an advisory role, yeah, and So we support them also when it comes to new innovations. And in the end of the day, so what, let's say David and myself, we do together, we do 4 things in the end of the day. So it's creating awareness around our customers, in our network or within the data center industry. We support them on opportunities, so we identify together with them opportunities. At the same time, David and myself, and where I'm covering the commercial part, but as he's one of the smartest engineers in the industry, he's creating these fancy new cooling solutions, and of course heat reuse solutions. There we have also, again, we are advising new data center sites really when they want to plan, how they can really build a future-proof data center site. And the 4th things we're doing together is trainings and workshops. Again, this is again the educational part, which we love to do, where we really providing workshops when it comes to AI chiplets, AI servers, how they look like, how do an AI data center site look like, and what is happening with liquid cooling at the moment. Why is immersion cooling and cold plate cooling coming out of the niche? It's scaling now worldwide. So this is something what we do. So it's clearly an advisory role. Of course, also, especially my part here in this tandem, I'm always saying here, I'm having more the commercial role and the role as a communicator. But of course, it's working really extremely good. So we are really providing services, and each one is sharing its strengths. Is that correct, David? Can you confirm?
Yes, yes, absolutely, of course. I fully agree with you.
Thank you.
David, how do you see your role on the consulting side, focusing on sustainability and circular economy and decarbonization changing as you look into your crystal ball ahead with a 2, 3, 4 year time horizon? What do you think you're going to be? What do you think you're going to be talking about differently, or working with companies differently on 2, 3, 4 years out from now?
Yes, even now it's happening. So now when we talk about decarbonization, I have a poll in LinkedIn, and 85% of the people respond that it's more marketing than the real action. And in order to avoid this marketing pitch and shift to the real achievements in decarbonization, we need to have transparency. And this is why we have with Stefan very interesting find out a very interesting platform which name is Transparentera, which allow you to get the trust, to get transparency in your CO2 emissions on scope 3, on scope 2, and scope 1. And this issue will be the main for the next 3 years. And this is the issue with all that center environmental responsibility. This is what we see. This break out of the real emissions from data centers.
If I may add, Joshua, so basically what we are now experiencing already now, what David said, we are now in a position where we're harvesting, so to speak, what we have been preaching many years, how to decarbonize the industry. And again, this is a challenge what we are facing. And I can see the changes already there. We're getting now approached by those people, and they're asking how to do this, right? And before there was, these guys to tell always the same story. I do my own business. I do my business as usual. No, it's not business as usual anymore. And there we trying to support the industry, doing our fair share, as I already said. And I think I did not mention, but David and myself, when we have left our voluntary leadership role at OCP here for Europe, we have created a group on LinkedIn. We call it the Data Center Decarbonization Group. And we started with 2 members in February, and now we're approaching 4,000 members here, followers in that particular LinkedIn group. So you can see there's a high interest from the industry, and this is also giving us a good feedback that we are on the right track, and there is a high demand on that, because again, It's a booming industry. The high performance computing or AI data centers are also increasing very fast. There are also two parallel developments. You have, let's say, the traditional data center sites, the colo sites, and so on, and now you have the really AI or high performance computing data center sites coming in growth big time. So you have now two different data center streams coming in, and of course bit of different demand, but all need to take care and all need to also be as energy efficient as possible. And also they can clearly see making use of the heat rejection is a must in the future.
You mentioned AI a few times. I'm super curious now with where you sit with what you do with DME, with the great work you do with your clients. Have you seen much impact yet on what you do on a daily basis or on a weekly basis because of AI? Is it impacting the tools that you use, the resources, your daily, weekly routines?
Yeah, so basically, when it comes to AI, I mean, I can also see it how I use it myself, private use, but also when it comes to in my business. So ChatGPT is a tool I'm using, and also David on a regular basis to also really support us creating content. Yeah. Of course, I'm still an old school guy. I still do it often on my own, but I'm also using ChatGPT to really support us here, starting from LinkedIn posts or other communication we are creating. So this is a tool, let's say, I'm using, and also on behalf of my customers also regularly. David, all yours?
From my side, it's I also use them in video recordings because AI assistant allow to summarize the meeting minutes in a really high quality manner and save a time and for me and for my customers.
Do either of you have any favorite software applications that you use on a regular basis to run your consultancy, to run your business, that no matter how much somebody would be pleading to take it away, you would fight tooth and nail to hold on to it? Fortunately, you're both entrepreneurs, so that you don't have to contend with an internal IT organization that, for whatever reasons, security reasons or budget reasons or standardization reasons, is arm wrestling with you over this. But are there any that are just indispensable to how you do your job?
But we should also satisfy our customers, enterprises, and they use this environment. So we should also be in the same. I mean, we should use Microsoft Teams and etc. to have the same kind of meetings or other WebEx or etc. But from application in my work, it's more LinkedIn and Sales Navigator, which allow me to get awareness, posts, group handling, and contacts, and etc.
I agree. So if someone would take LinkedIn away from us, we would have an issue. Yeah, it's the best business platform, and we are really, as you probably also noticed, frequent users of LinkedIn. There we're creating awareness not only for our companies but also mainly for our customers. We really love it because it's also a business platform. Sometimes people say, yeah, it's a Facebook for business people, but we strongly believe in LinkedIn. Of course, yeah, what David said, we're using all kinds of video systems. If it's Zoom, Microsoft Teams, you name it. Also in line with the most liked tools our customers are using. And of course, being an old guy in the industry, we are still also relying big time on simply emails. Yeah, emails is also a tool we are using also on a frequently basis here. And yeah, I'm a marketing guy. I'm also strongly using old school Microsoft Office, the full package. And as you can imagine, especially PowerPoint. Yeah, PowerPoint is really my tool, and I still love PowerPoint. Some people hate it, but I think it's really good. You can really complex things can be really visualized in an easy way and in a simple way, and this I still love. Yeah.
Yeah, it's super interesting how much the LinkedIn has come into focus over the last decade. It used to be when I would have these conversations at industry events, the pushback at the time was, I don't want to do social media. I don't need to do social media. Well, now you really don't have to do all social media. It's this industry for sure, digital infrastructure, like by far and away, it's not even close. LinkedIn is the platform, especially with 1 billion users. And in most cases, for anyone that's on the commercial side or as an entrepreneur or a founder, there's a very, very high likelihood that your internal champions at your client sites that are leading these transformation initiatives are at least somewhat active on LinkedIn. And I'm really not sure someone could be an effective internal champion if they're that digitally resistant that they aren't using that platform for professional, personal development, career development.
And I would like to add, Joshua, there's another tool nobody knows outside the German-speaking markets, which are Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. It's Sing. It's a Sing. This is also like a business platform. And this is dying, because they haven't been innovative. It's old-fashioned, and people really are the process or someone have done it already. I'm not using that tool anymore, so it will die. And when I talk to, let's say, peers or also fellow people and colleagues in the industry and partners, everyone is on LinkedIn.
Yeah, it's definitely made it easier to concentrate efforts, and then it's just really a matter as people get involved in the platform, understanding that there's organic opportunities, there's group opportunities, events, there's sales navigator, there's campaign manager, there's so many different facets, and it's a great just research tool on so many different levels to hear what's going on. I like to explain it to people too, that it's kind of like a 7x24 365 conference that's always going on globally.
Yeah.
Even when you're on holiday, chances are there's another region of the world that isn't. So like it literally never stops.
Yeah. And in terms of Messenger, so David and myself, we are relying big time on Signal. So we're a big fan of Signal. And there we are also communicating among each other, but also with our customers. So we're always promoting also Signal because we think it's a secure tool. And also you can quickly also get in touch with people. And also David and myself, we are on a regular basis communicating stuff and exchanging. And we are really strongly believe in Signal as a messenger tool.
That's terrific. Really appreciate you both sharing so generously today of your expertise. It's really been phenomenally valuable. I'm curious if either of you have any thoughts on who I should interview next for this podcast.
Yes, we do. David, you need to run, I think, but you wanna go first?
Yes, so I suggest to involve Julie Bolthouse and Elena Schlossberg from Northern Virginia in order to explain about the situation with that central industry in that particular case, because only Northern Virginia consume energy more than France, Germany, Ireland altogether. So it's a real issue from the perspective what can be with the people and in that area. And sorry, I need to
yes, all good.
But I think Stefan can continue and
yes, I will do. Thank you, David.
That was terrific. Thank you so much, David. Really appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you.
Take care now.
Bye, David. Joshua, I would like to elaborate on Julie Bolthouse and Elena Schlossberg. I'm happy to share also their LinkedIn profiles after our call. They are really activists in Northern Virginia, and we've done also a video interview with them. I'm happy to share the link with you. And Northern Virginia, as you possibly aware of, has the highest density of data center sites in the US. Due to the energy is cheap, the land is there, so it doesn't cost that much, and they have an issue with the energy grid. And these two ladies are like activists in that area, and I invited them to meet up with some hyperscalers in 2 weeks' time at the OCP Global Summit in San Jose. But unfortunately, they cannot join us there. But yeah, please invite these two ladies. it's really worthwhile having a video session together with them. And then, of course, please also get in touch with Professor Deborah Andrews. I can also highly recommend to talk to Deborah. She's from the London South Bank University. We've done many also presentations together with her or panel discussions. She's really into circular economy. So please get in touch with her. I'm also happy to share her LinkedIn details with you later on. Our good old friend, possibly you know him already, John Laban from London. John Laban is he's the person actually who introduced us to OCP. He is the OCP evangelist in Europe. So please talk to John also. Very knowledgeable person. We're also extremely smart guy. So I'm also happy to share his LinkedIn profile together with you. And then, also a good friend of us is Henrik Borling from Denmark, from Copenhagen. He works for Huawei, but he's really also an open-minded guy, really also in sustainability and decarbonization, involved in many projects. He's focusing, of course, at the Nordic region, so Scandinavia, including Iceland, and he works on some really interesting projects where they do sector coupling, where they have renewable energy, where they have data center sites, but they have also other industries like hydrogen plants really in this area working together and benefiting from each other. So Henrik Borling might be also an interesting guy to talk to. So I'm also happy to share his details with you.
Yeah, that would be terrific. I really, really appreciate it. They all sound like phenomenal guests to look at the intersection of what they're working on in the industry, the commercialization implications, the alignment implications, the communication implications. So yeah, really, really appreciate that. This has been tremendous. Really enjoyed our talk today, Stefan.
Likewise.
If someone wants to follow what you're working on or reach out to you, is LinkedIn the best place for someone to reach you?
LinkedIn, as usual, is the best place to reach out to me. Please feel free to drop me a message, ping me on LinkedIn, and then I'm more than welcome to get in touch with that person.
Is the same recommendation for David as well?
Yes. Yeah.
LinkedIn. Okay. Yeah, I'll include the URLs for both of you with the blogs, with the show
Thank
notes.
you.
What about learning about your companies, about DME or about Impleon? Is there a website the best place? Is there a social channel?
We have our websites. I'm happy to share the link to our websites, but we have also our YouTube channels. So David has his Impleon, and I have my DME YouTube channels where we are also sharing videos about heat reuse, but where we're also sharing videos from our panel discussions, which are video recorded, or our keynotes. So please have a look at the YouTube channels. I'm also happy to share those links to our channels with you. Please drop a message on LinkedIn, and then again, I'm more than welcome to have a conversation about heat reuse, sustainability, and decarbonization of the industry.
Yeah, I love hearing too that both of you are all in on YouTube. I would say of most of the guests that I've interviewed, maybe 20-25% consider YouTube to be a core channel for them. And it's such a huge opportunity to educate and build trust, especially across time zones, especially across geographies. And as even from a practical standpoint with digital marketing, as everyone starts getting really nervous about how a traditional search results page is changing, it looks like YouTube is going to be one of the best protections against that to continue showing up when people are looking for topical based information. So I applaud both of you for making those kinds of investments.
Yeah, I think it's a great tool, and we are we try to spread the world among as many people, and also cross country, cross region wise, and we believe YouTube is a great tool. That's why we are there, and hopefully we can also share this video, Joshua, on our YouTube channels.
Yeah, that would be awesome. This is terrific. I've been speaking with Stefan Frenzel, who is the managing director of DME in Munich, Germany. We also had David G, who's the consultant from Impleon in France. So thank you so much, Stefan. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Joshua. You take care, and talk to you soon.
The Data Center Go-to-Market podcast is sponsored by DCSMI, elevating the role of sales, marketing, and go-to-market GTM professionals in the growth of the data center industry. To stay informed about upcoming episodes, make sure that you subscribe to the Data Center Sales and Marketing newsletter on the DCSMI website that can be found at www.dcsmi.com. Again, that URL is www.dcsmi.com.